last Sunday, September 28, Senator Panfilo Lacson revealed that almost all senators in the 19th Congress inserted at least 100 billion worth of items in the 2025 GAA, citing that he had gathered documents showing that those were individual insertions. He said that such insertions could threaten the economy. Sinabi pa po niya, Mr. President, sa budget deliberation, pwede kong tanungin ito bakit pinayagan ito. Ang pagbusisi, lalo sa plenary, gusto kong malaman ilan ang isiningit na insertion, ang nag-release at paano na-implement. Mr. President, when former DPWH Undersecretary Cabral, as disclosed by Senator Lacson, offered insertions in the 2026 budget to the Senate President, Senator Sotto boldly refused, invoking transparency and good governance. At that time, he appeared to draw a moral line that insertions were wrong. Does this mean that the Senate President never had budget insertions during all the time he served as Senator of the Republic and as Senate President for almost 5 years? Yet when it was revealed that 100 billion worth of insertions actually found their way into the 2025 budget through the Senate itself, the Senate President shifted tone and justified them as part of the regular budget process. At the start of the plenary session last Monday, he even said, and I quote, "Amendments, insertions, or whatever you want to call it, whether individual or institutional, are part of the regular budget process." These seemingly inconsistent positions have once again stirred confusion not only within this chamber, but more importantly, among our people. Just yesterday, Mr. President, Senator Lacson clarified that he did not mean to put anyone on the spot, but expressed that this is a chance for both houses to heed to the public outrage against corruption. Yet the fact remains, his prior statements have already cast doubts and shadows, not just to the individuals he alluded to, but also to the integrity of this institution. His disclosure last Sunday ended up banners of newspapers Monday morning, to the consternation of his colleagues. While a caucus was called in the afternoon of the same day to explain that it was not meant to put anyone on the spot but to heed the public outrage, it's too late in the day, Mr. President. Mr. President, the confusion is further compounded. For years, Senator Lacson made it his moral crusade to denounce budget manipulations as the breeding ground of corruption, particularly infrastructure projects like flood control. He called them humongous budget insertions that fueled waste and abuse. But then in the wake of public outrage, instead of pressing for accountability and demanding justice for past misuse, he appeared to have abruptly shifted tone. After pontificating on the evils of insertions, he suddenly got off from his hobby horse of morality and simply urged both chambers to heed the public outrage. What does this mean, Mr. President? That after all the thunder, we simply move on. This inconsistency, first condemning insertions as corrupt, then quietly moving on without demanding redress, only deepens public distrust. Are we truly committed to reform, or merely staging rhetorical battles without the resolve to clean up the rat? This flip-flop erodes the consistency of our institutions' stand. Are insertions wrong, or are they right? If they are wrong, why did we allow them? If they are right, why did we deny them before? Mr. President, we must confront this issue not with rhetoric, but with clarity of principle. The Senate is tasked under the Constitution with the power of the purse and the vital function of oversight. But let me ask, is oversight synonymous with budget insertions? Or are insertions merely convenient vehicles for pork and patronage? Without a clear framework, we risk reducing this chamber to nothing more than a rubber stamp of the powers that be, thereby undermining the checks and balances carefully designed by the framers of our Constitution. The so-called flood control scandal illustrates the urgency of this clarification, Mr. President. For years, billions of pesos were poured into flood control projects, yet today, every typhoon, every monsoon rain still brings massive flooding to our communities. Where did the money go? Were the projects properly planned and implemented, or were they merely vehicles for lump sum appropriations and political accommodations? If Senate oversight means anything, it must mean exposing these abuses, But if oversight is confused with insertions, then the Senate itself becomes complicit. Instead of protecting the people from waste and corruption, we risk becoming enablers of it. This is why the rules must be clarified so that oversight is exercised as a constitutional duty, not as a bargaining chip for the insertions hidden in the budget. Mr. President, our people demand clarity. They demand consistency. Most of all, they demand accountability. The budget is not the private purse of politicians. It is the lifeblood of the nation. The flood control scandal is proof that unless we strengthen our oversight function, billions will continue to be wasted, and the Filipino people will continue to miserably suffer. I therefore urge this chamber to undertake a comprehensive review of our rules and practices on budget amendments and insertions, to draw the line between legitimate oversight and illegitimate manipulation, and to reclaim the public trust in our stewardship of their hard-earned taxes. Let us not be remembered as the Senate that equivocated on principle. Let us be remembered as the Senate that stood firm for transparency, for integrity, and for the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. President.
The leader. I just wish the presentation of the privileged speech of the gentleman was delivered while Senator Lacson was here. But nevertheless, to answer this question of whether from my 1992 to the present have I not had any insertions, I guarantee you I have never made any insertions in the budget.
Yung resolution po na ito, kasama lahat ng resolution po ng final ng iba't ibang mga membro ng Senado, are within the rules of the ICC. Linawin ko po yun kasi parang sinasabi, ito yung mga president, ito yung pwede, ito hindi pwede. Galing nung research nyo, pero ang magde-decide pa rin yan ICC. At ang basehan ng decision nila ay hindi yung presidents ng ibang mga membro kasi iba-iba yung sitwasyon natin sitwasyon ng mga accused. So yung rules. Pangalawa po, lahat ng resolution na final natin kasama kay Majority Leader is consistent with each and every human rights convention that the Philippines signed. So what I want to emphasize, Mr. President, is ibang vengeance sa justice Ang vengeance is an emotional impulse of someone who is a victim of injustice. In Tagalog, gusto niyang gantihan. Ang justice, justisya, ay well-defined sa international community, and I know that as a former Secretary of Foreign Affairs. At yan po ay nakatala sa ating konstitusyon, sa international conventions, sa human rights, etc., pati sa ICC. At pag ikaw ay hinuhusgahan pa lang o ikaw ay kinakasuhan pa lang, in fact, na-postpone yung yung confirmation of charges kasi tinitignan pa nga kung maiintindihan ng akusado yung i-accuse sa kanya. So, kasama lahat po dyan sa justice is hindi mo muna gagantihan siya habang siya ay innocent until proven guilty. Tignan nyo halimbawa si dating Senador Leila de Lima. Wag na yung ibang mga senador, di ba? Grabe din po ang akusasyon sa kanya, droga. Pero pumayag po lahat. Pati po ang pinakagalit sa kanya na out of humanitarian, meron siyang detention facility sa Camp Crame. No? At meron siyang cellphone at nakakapag-function pa rin siya dito. So lastly, Mr. President, I will not argue anymore whether the war on drugs was a maniac killing everyone or the war on drugs was precisely to protect the Filipinos because replay na to Ilang beses na napaliwanag to, the facts, ilang beses na present sa international community at saka dito. Just one point, Mr. President. Nung tinignan natin yung dami na namatay nung Aquino administration, ay sing dami nung namatay nung first 2 years nung Duterte administration. Except that during the Aquino administration, through Senator De Lima, pinalitan nila yung definition ng EJK. EJK, kapag yan ay labor union, yan ay human rights leader na napatay. Pero pag ordinaryong tao na napatay, hindi EJK. Biglang pagdating ni Duterte, lahat ng patay na hindi natural causes, EJK. Pero pag kinumpare mo, there was 13 to 16,000 every year in the Aquino and even before Aquino. So again, Mr. President, we're not here to debate that. History will judge.
Precisely.
Our courts here, the DOJ will ano that. I just have to reply, Mr. President, kasi nga it was brought up as if yun ang dinidebate natin. Ang dinidebate natin humanitarian. Humanitarian ay walang pakialam sa feelings ng mga posibleng biktima. Kasi ang hustisya po ay bulag. Ay nakatakip po yung mata para nga walang makita, no? So even if I was a victim of a crime here, no, at masakit na makita kong magpiyansa or may house arrest yung inaakusahan ko. Kung yun ang batas at pwede, hindi po dahilan na si Alan ayaw yun. So I vote yes, Mr. President, and I thank our colleagues for putting this on the floor. Thank you, Mr.